room is writing their questions so that we can read them into the computer so you all can hear them too. And hopefully if you're on the webinar, you can enter your question into the chat. And thank you all for being here today. Okay.
All right.
We're having technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties. So everyone should still be able to hear me totally fine.
You want to come in the box with me?
Come in the box with you? All right. Join the box.
I don't have my mask on.
Can you see all of us? Come closer, Lisa.
I can't.
How's this? Do we look good, guys? All right. So our first question, we had a ton of questions. So over 25 years, have the water quality measuring systems and procedures remained the same?
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right, step down. Don't trip over them. Sorry. I just think I'm all muffled if I have my mask on. So we started doing the report card for water quality in 1996 because that's when they changed their methods really of analysis. That's when laboratory analysis methods got way better. So they've been pretty consistent since then. These are state agency data. So it's St. John's and South Florida water management districts. And St. John's and South Florida measure things pretty much about the same. The form that we get the data in is different and we have to combine it, especially for total nitrogen. But yeah, there hasn't been any major change in the protocols for collecting sampling or the laboratory analysis during this data set. And that's why we started in the year we did, because prior to then, there was a very different process in the lab in particular. But that's a good question.
All right, excellent. So then the next question is, in 2006 to 2008, there was great data. What accounts for that?
I don't understand the question. So there were great data?
Yeah, it seems like there was positive data.
Oh, well, that's a great question. Yeah, I think some brilliant scientists should take that one on. I mean, honestly, there are a lot of whys, and I kind of jokingly say, don't ask any why questions. You know, why did things look so much better in 2006? Why did things look so much better in 2009? So it would be a labor of love for somebody to go to that region or those regions, and if what you see is a consistent pattern across changing chemicals and nutrients before it's going to just not. I do appreciate you all. Oh, good. So everybody can hear me? Here out there? Okay, great. So the question about, why do certain years look better than other years is a great question that can be answered empirically by a scientist who has lots of time to investigate whether that was a local change or a regional change. So we can suspect that if it's the entire lagoon had a good year, that was probably had something to do with weather. So here in Brevard, we had a very dry spring and a dry early summer, and the lagoon looked gorgeous, and everybody thought we were done. They were like, mission accomplished. We cleaned the lagoon, and it had nothing to do with anything except a dry spring. So that's when you see major changes like that, you can believe they're climatological. And knowing that we've got some climatological changes coming, we're frantically trying to figure out what we're dealing with because it's all about to change. Everything's about to change in the system. But those tributaries, I think, are really the interesting thing to focus on, those rivers, because if you see a major change in a river, that probably is a project or a change that's happened in an outfall somewhere, or a change that's happened where somebody clear cut 100 acres and all of that soil is now dumped into that tributary. And you will see changes like that happen instantly. And we hear about it from our Lagoon Watch volunteers. And they're measuring for 6 parameters, and one of them is pH. And we had somebody down in Sebastian River go, the pH just went from 7.6 to 4 in a tributary to 4. So something happened, right? So they're like, what happened? I'm like, I don't know, look around. Do you see any construction sites? Do you see any major, it's like the tributaries tell the story really close up. The lagoon proper is very, very buffered. Good question. I think
all right, excellent. Thank you so much for that, Lisa.
Okay.
All right. So our next question is about seagrass. Can seagrass be planted or somehow reseeded?
Good. So the seagrass, should I repeat the question? Somebody asked if seagrasses could be replanted or reseeded, and yes, they both can. Down at the south end of the lagoon, Florida Oceanographic Society, I believe, is growing seagrasses to put back out in the lagoon. I know there are areas, there's a mitigation site up for Merritt Island Airport that Merritt Island extended a runway, they impacted the lagoon, and they had to plant seagrass to mitigate for that, and it was a successful project. There are, I think, a lot of questions about why the seagrasses are dying that need to be answered before we go spending a lot of money putting seagrasses back in the lagoon, because they might just die. And we've got a starving population, not only of manatees, but of green sea turtles and pinfish and all those little fish that are herbivorous that the big fish eat. They eat seagrass too. So everything that the blade of seagrass pops up, you better believe there's going to be like 16 different organisms trying to eat it at this point, sadly. So some of the seagrass restoration efforts, they are testing and using different types of enclosures to keep out manatees and sea turtles and some of the bigger critters, but then there are little critters like the little fish, and I guess crown conchs also apparently eat seagrass that can get in and just decimate the seagrass they're trying to grow. So it can be, there are a lot of complexities to doing that.
And this ties into the question that was just asked. Are parasites attacking seagrass? Is it possibly a bacterial, fungal infection?
Could be. No, it's not a bad idea. I mean, there's definitely something besides these 4 things, right? There's only these 4 things. It's very, very simple, right? Nitrogen, phosphorus cause algae blooms, which reduces light, which kills seagrass. Well, what happens when those first 4, the water quality is fine, and yet the seagrass is, so it could be anything. It could be herbicide, right? It could be fungus. It could be, I mean, fungal diseases in agriculture are very common. They're always trying to fight, fungal diseases. So I'm sure they have those, in seagrasses also. I'm not a seagrass.
Good job leading into the next question.
Good.
This one is the mercury in Turnbull Creek in the water, sediment, or fish, or in all?
Oh, good. That's a good question. The results that I saw was in the water column and in the sediment. I don't know about any fish. Data that people have collected and analyzed fish tissues for mercury. I can't imagine it wouldn't be there. But what we were trying to figure out, the scientists were trying to figure out really is where is it coming from? And they were talking about an atmospheric deposition station up there to try to understand whether this is truly coming out of the atmosphere, which is where mercury generally comes from here, or whether it was being methylated in situ, whether the swamp itself was actually creating its own mercury over generations of atmospheric deposition, that it was somehow accumulating it in the sediment. Very interesting. Yes, mercury is an interesting chemical, especially in swamp systems where things get methylated. And
all right. Okay, so then our next question is, how do you expect the North IRL will be affected by the recent fish kill?
How do I suspect the North IRL will be affected by the recent fish kill? So we see in 2016, so the 2016 fish kill was way, way, way larger of an area, more species that were impacted. And what we saw was increase in nitrogen. So it makes sense that when something rots, it's going to release ammonium and phosphorus. So we can kind of expect to see that. The loop that we're in right now, right? So we're having these blooms and then they die and then the DO drops and then the fish die and then they release nitrogen and phosphorus, and which causes a bloom. So we're in a cycle, it's self-perpetuating. And even with this bloom, the current bloom that caused this fish kill, it's been going on pretty much all year while we've been, self-isolating and enduring the horrors that is the COVID year. The lagoon has been blooming from the North IRL almost clear down to the Melbourne Causeway. I mean, we actually saw part of the bloom going by the lagoon house earlier this summer. So that's a huge area. So it was just a matter of time before it was all going to die. So the question has been, like, when does it all die? If it dies all in one chunk, then that means DO drops for that entire region, and then we're going to see another massive fish kill. But it didn't. It died kind of sporadically. So we had this minorly massive fish kill. So yeah, we can expect it's just going to continue to loop, right? So the fish, what I understand, what I saw was a lot of lower benthic organisms, rays and skates and catfish and things, different species that were lost in this fish kill, but maybe that was just the area that I was looking at. So we can expect a species impacts, we can expect a nutrient impacts, we expect to see, just like we did in 2016, nitrogen and phosphorus to come up. I think we can expect, we're not going to have any seagrasses showing up after, not really so much the fish kill, but the long algae bloom. So the algae bloom all summer, blocking the light. That's when our seagrasses are trying to come up. They're not going to have the opportunity. So good questions.
Awesome. Yeah, and we've got a ton of really good ones. It's hard to kind of like pick and choose. I'm hoping that we can get to them all. This question kind of relates to the water quality that we're experiencing now. When will the 2020 data be available? And then
so the 2020 data, hopefully we should get them in about July.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah, we were successful at convincing our partners at the state agencies to get us their data sooner. So I hope that pattern continues. The state does quality assure their data before they share them. That process used to take between 12 and 18 months. So now they're trying to get it done in 6, which means that they'll finish collecting their data in December. And then January, they'll start their quality assurance process. And hopefully by June, we'll get a call that says, data are ready. And then July, we'll have them in our hands. But it's still a process to get these data. And there are 137,000 of them in this report. So it's no small feat.
Definitely. And sometimes it can, be kind of difficult to get in touch with the legislative branches. We did have another question. Is there a legislative advocacy to ban fertilizer or herbicides on properties adjacent to surface waters?
Oh, that's a great idea. So the question was about whether there's an effort to ban the use of herbicides and fertilizers on properties adjacent to the lagoon. And I think it's a great idea. Where we got with fertilizer ordinance making was, and it was such a process, was a ban on applying fertilizer in the summer. So that's about, and that ban, believe me, was not easy to get through. And the premise is that at least if you're not applying during the rainy season, it's less likely that it's all running off and into the stormwater system and into the lagoon. So the current ordinances that we have now in place, and I want to say 91 different municipalities in the state of Florida, require that you use 50% slow release nitrogen, require that you do not apply any nitrogen whatsoever in the summer, or the seasonal restriction is from June 1 to September 30 in some places. It's June 1 to October 30 in other places. So it depends on where you live, but there is a seasonal restriction. It starts June 1st and ends sometime in the winter. You cannot apply nitrogenous fertilizers at all. It requires that you do a soil test before you apply any phosphorus. So right now, if you live anywhere in one of these communities, and all of them except for the town of Jupiter Island in the entire lagoon watershed have the same ordinance. You cannot apply phosphorus fertilizer to your turf grass, period, unless the soil test confirms it. And then lastly, if you live along the lagoon or any body of water, you have to have a setback of, and this varies, of 10 to 25 feet, depending on the city or county you're in, of a buffer area where you do not apply any fertilizer. And that's a perfect place to put a beach or a pervious area where you can enjoy your shoreline, or plant your shoreline with some fantastic mangroves and native vegetation, and not put your turf grass all the way down to your seawall. You want to have a buffer of 10 or 15 feet away from any water body where you're not applying fertilizer at all. But I agree. I think you should just stop applying fertilizer. No fertilizer. Disconnect your lawn.
Well, so then our next question, are there any green fertilizers that may not have as much of an impact?
Yeah. So, well, depending again on where you live, organic fertilizers are always best. Anything that's got natural biological activity already in it. So, think about compost and things that have bacteria in them. So organic fertilizers. Some ordinances say you can apply these even in the rainy season because they're organic. Some you still can't. So if it's a organic fertilizer, it almost is guaranteed to have nitrogen and phosphorus in it. Nitrogen is almost guaranteed to be slow release because it's bacterial and it's organic. But it's going to have phosphorus because it's just kind of the nature of organic materials to have phosphorus. So you need to read carefully whether your ordinance will allow the application of phosphorus in that case. But these, using any kind of a natural product to, like I say, infuse your soil back with the bacteria and the natural materials that would break down and create the habitat, for lack of a better word, for vegetative roots to be happy and grow happy plants is really what you should be using. I know that Scott's came out with a fertilizer ordinance friendly product. Finally, so they finally did it. We knew once, actually the first people to come out with the ordinance friendly products were our own Florida fertilizing companies. Florida has got a rich agricultural heritage and a rich fertilizer making heritage. So we've got some great fertilizer making facilities right in our state. And those were the first ones to respond to these ordinances and start the market in the direction of creating products that are safe for water quality. So you can find those, Sun Nursery, I'm not going to remember the names, but Beef30 and Now website has a whole list of ordinance friendly products. Some of them you can buy on the shelves at Lowe's or Home Depot. Some of them you can find at your specialty hardware store. I would reach out again. I can't commend the extension office here in Brevard is awesome. Sally Scalera has she's a great resource for us, and she's got some great ideas of how you can improve the health of your plants without having to put chemicals all over your yard.
Excellent.
Thank you for those.
Yeah, these are some really amazing questions. I'm hoping we can get to them all. This one I really like as well. If everyone stopped fertilizing for a year, would that help water quality?
Yes.
How much though?
Oh, what? There's more?
Oh, no. All right.
Why don't we try it and find out? That's an empirical question. I think I challenge everybody to stop fertilizing their lawn for a year and see if it improves water quality in the lagoon.
All right, Kevin. kind of going back to the government agencies, are there any government agencies or organizations other than the Marine Resources Council that use the Indian River Lagoon Health Report Card?
Are there other government agencies that use our report card? Well, I know we just got a very nice donation from Save the Manatee Club for the report card because they saw the importance of us having this up in Tallahassee during session. So I don't know if you think the legislature is a government agency. It's kind of not. It's its own government body of individuals that represent us. But they, it was instrumental, and Senator Mayfield will talk about this. I know she created the IRL caucus, a consortium of representatives and senators that went up to Tallahassee, a couple of years ago with our report card, shared it with the rest of our representatives, and talked about the Indian River Lagoon and its need for dedicated funding, its need for the Clean Waterways Act that was finally passed last year, thanks to Senator Mayfield's efforts. It made the case for water quality in the entire state is kind of going down the toilet, but this is really bad. Look at these scores and how they relate to, the water quality targets that our own state has set up and our state's own water quality monitoring program. So when you put it in the face of the state and say, listen, you're not meeting your regulatory targets here, it kind of makes them start to realize the importance of dedicating the effort, dedicating the funding, and the long-term commitment to bringing our estuary back to health. It's going to be, and that's what this report needs to continue to say. Things are getting a little bit better. We're still having challenges here. Should we not be calling to reality that, maybe we're not monitoring the right things. Maybe we need to be monitoring more toxins. Maybe we need to be monitoring more herbicides. Maybe we need to stop applying herbicides all over the state and start mechanically harvesting plants out of the canals and out of the connecting tributaries. Because, when that change happened, when the state decided to reduce their budget, when we had an economic downturn and the state started diverting funds away from environmental programs and into other things, one of the things that they did pretty much across the board was start aerial broadcast spraying of herbicides and stopped mechanically harvesting. Mechanical harvesting involves a person, a job, a machine, maintenance, and a lot of costs that if you're just hiring a pilot with a spray machine and he can just spray the entire canal in an hour, that's a lot cheaper than sending a guy out there for a week with a machine. The good thing about the machine is it's actually removing the nutrients. It's taking that vegetative material out of the water column. If you spray it and it dies and falls to the bottom, what does it do? It releases all that nitrogen and phosphorus into the water column. So we're getting these big plugs of herbicide, nitrogen and phosphorus coming out of our tributaries now. Where before it was being harvested, it was being used for create organic fertilizers, it was being sent to landfills and so on. So just getting the state to go back to what they were doing prior, I think would be helpful.
All right. So so you mentioned a lot that the government agencies focus on the water quality. Do you feel that they care as much about habitat loss?
That's a good question. So do they care? Well, so the question was about, can they hear the question from Nicole, or should I repeat it?
Should be able to, but just in case, it always helps if you repeat it.
All right, so the government agencies, do they care about water quality and do they care about habitat? I think yes. I don't know, so the TMDL program, where I'm kind of missing a piece of, I guess, enforcement is TMDL, Total Maximum Daily Loads, is a stormwater program that deals with modeled loading coming from the land into a receiving body of water. So there are these different little basins that they've defined, and then every municipality within that basin, that watershed, which let's just pretend it's 100 acres, so it may include 3 cities in that 100 acres. So they will set a TMDL that says you must reduce in this basin your total nitrogen by 1,000 tons of nitrogen per year. And then those 3 municipalities have to show, well, we've done this project, this project, this project. This project will reduce it 10 tons. This project will reduce it 50 tons. This project will reduce it. And so they just deduct it. So their regulatory compliance is, oh, they've done these 10 programs, those 10 projects add up to 600 pounds of nitrogen, 600 tons of nitrogen per year. So there are only 400 tons that they need to implement, and they're done. They've met their TMDL. Do you understand? So it's all modeled. It's all a make-believe, if you want to call models make-believe, and I do. But I'm one of those, I love them, I'm an ecologist, but you need to look at the reality of what's happening in the real world and ground truth your data, right? So they're just using a model. They're saying you have to meet 1,000 tons. Oh, your projects add up to 600. You're almost there. Nobody's ever going and actually looking at the receiving water body to see if the 600 tons has made any difference. That's kind of what we're doing with this report. We're the only ones doing that. We're the only ones saying, you've got this TMDL program, you've got all this work that you're doing, we've got a 0.5-cent sales tax here. We're putting in millions of dollars worth of projects every year, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of projects. Is it going to have any impact on water quality? Is it going to have any impact on habitat quality? I think we're the only ones who are interested in that. Everybody else is just about this model, this TMDL model. The model says that if you do this, everything's going to be fine. But let's not look at it. Let's just look at the paper that says it's going to do that.
And that does lead into our next question of how does the 0.5-cent sales tax affect the lagoon?
Oh, good. So the 0.5-cent sales tax is our community being awesome again and voting to tax itself. It has the potential to raise, I think, $340 million over 10 years. There's a project plan. I encourage everybody, especially if you're a Brevard County citizen, to go out to Brevard County website and read your plan. It changes every year. You have the right as a citizen to provide input on it. We've got a citizen oversight committee that's making sure that the plan is being implemented, are recommending that it be implemented successfully. We've got county commissioners who can decide to agree with them or not. So remember that too when you go to vote, although it's kind of too late for this year. So how does the Brevard County sales tax impact water quality? We will know in years to come. Right now, they have spent, I don't know, they've put in about 67 projects in place. They've spent tens of millions of dollars. Most of the money of the sales tax is going to big, huge infrastructure projects that need a lot of planning and a lot of permitting. Things like muck removal, which I think they started their very first muck removal project this past spring in the Grand Canal. So they're just getting started on these big projects. The big projects like muck removal projects, wastewater infrastructure, wastewater upgrades for wastewater treatment facilities, stormwater retrofits, improving your existing stormwater infrastructure, finding leaking underground wastewater lines that are leaking raw sewage all over the place, finding your areas of your wastewater infrastructure that are backing up, clogging, and requiring millions of gallons of raw sewage to be dumped into the lagoon. Those are the big, huge projects that are going to make the big, huge difference, and those are just getting started. So we're going to see an improvement in water quality coming from those projects. I don't expect to see it this year. It's going to be coming down the line. Again, knowing where the projects are and knowing if it's adjacent to a tributary, tributaries are where we're going to see things first. And the lagoon proper, there's so much buffering capacity and there's so much existing, especially the muck in the bottom. The muck is just constantly off-gassing ammonium and nitrogen. Until all that muck is gone, it's going to be hard to see any other difference in water quality that's nitrogen or phosphorus related. Muck, we need to get the muck out. We haven't always been a big advocates for muck removal because in the past it's been used only for navigational purposes, and there's a lot of damage that can be done when removing muck from the lagoon. The county is being very proactive in doing environmental muck dredging. It's a whole different process, and the monitoring required for that. So we're kind of keeping an eye on making sure that the monitoring is being done effectively. Muck can have contaminants in it. It can have toxins in it. Where they put the muck is important. What they're monitoring in that muck is important, and how they're dealing with the effluent, the water that comes off of that muck, is super important as well. So those are big, huge projects, big money projects. They take years to get permitted, and we expect to see major improvements in water quality and hopefully a reciprocating improvement in habitat quality once those finally start to get implemented.
Yeah, that leads right into our next question. Where is the muck currently being removed?
Where
And
is the muck?
is there a schedule of muck removal projects that is available to the public?
Oh, that's a good question. I wish I had the answer. So the question was about muck projects. Where are they being done, and is there a schedule? And I would hope so. Like I mentioned, the only one I know of, I know Turkey Creek was done, and O'Galley River was done. Both were done without Save Our Lagoon tax. Those were projects that were started in the past that just wrapped up during, recently. And then I think they just started the Grand Canal, but then they had to shut it down because of some problem that they faced. I don't remember exactly what. The Save Our Lagoon, Brevard County Save Our Indian River Lagoon project plan has a website. The plan is out there, and then they have a project update secondary page that you can go to, and it'll list all the projects and what the timeline is. So if it's in Brevard County, Save Our Indian River Lagoon project plan has a project website, a project page on their website, and you can go there and see which projects, what's the timeline. You can talk to county staff personally and find out what the status is. Thank you.
Excellent.
All right, so this is an interesting question. Is there any progress on the idea of using the flood tide at Port Canaveral to enter the lagoon and create southward movement to be discharged at the Sebastian Inlet?
I think the question is referring to this potential one-way flow concept that Florida Institute of Technology has been researching and modeling. What would happen if, for example, a weir or a pump was installed at Port Canaveral that would allow a one-way exchange of water? Because remember, I mentioned that we don't want a two-way, we don't want an inlet, because we don't want that outfall to go, a muck be all over our beaches like we saw in that horrible picture of the St. Lucie estuary. But a one-way pump, how effective would it be to just bring some ocean water? So let's pretend this is clean ocean water and not the port water, which may or may not be clean, into the north end of the Banana River. How much of a flow would you have to get through that pump for an atom, and this is what they're modeling specifically, a molecule of water to make its way all the way down to the Sebastian Inlet? So would there ever be enough energy driven by this project idea that it could conceivably create a flow? And now let's also just pretend that the Banana does not have 9 feet of muck in it, because we also don't want that flowing down towards the Sebastian either. But they, again, were successfully awarded. I think FIT put in, I don't know how much money to the legislature to continue to develop that model and test that question. And it was funded again. So we should be seeing results from their study in the next, I would hope, year or so, which would either, we would be moving forward with a pilot, or they'll be putting that to rest. So we'll see what their results come out as.
All right, excellent, thank you. We are changing gears a little bit.
We're going to switch to asking, there are some people that feel that manatees are overpopulated due to the lack of environmental pressures. Can you address this? And how are they impacting seagrass recovery?
Okay, so the question about whether there are too many manatees in the lagoon, and whether or not they're having an impact on seagrass. And I don't know what the carrying capacity of manatees is in the Indian River Lagoon. I know that in 2013, we lost a quarter of them. So the ones that are left are probably eating grass from the side of the road. There's no seagrass out there. So I'm not a manatee biologist. There are people who are. I don't know what the carrying capacity of manatees is in the Indian River Lagoon. I suspect that we had way more manatees in the lagoon 5,000 years ago than we do now. So I can't imagine that the number we have now is impacting the lagoon. The second part of the question was about the seagrass. So yes, absolutely. If a manatee that is hungry comes upon a blade of grass growing in the lagoon, he's going to munch on it. But what we did see from the south end of the Mosquito, which is where most of the manatees are now eating, that the seagrasses are sustaining themselves. So that's work that NASA scientists are doing. I mean, they were curious about, they knew manatees were coming, right? Because there's no seagrasses anywhere else. And so they have been keeping an eye, particularly on their seagrasses up there. We need to, you know, have a refugia for seagrass somewhere in the lagoon. And it seems to be holding its own. So the manatee population, it's always been here. It's not an exotic species that was brought over. You know, things that co-evolve together tend to be able to be self-sustaining. I'm not sure how to explain that better. The manatee population in the state has improved, but I think it's been pretty steady in the Indian River Lagoon. And then in 2013, we lost a quarter of it anyway. So I don't think it's recovered its numbers since then.
Thank you. Kind of touching back on seagrass as well. What is the root cause of long-term seagrass decline in the Banana River? And is there anything that's being done to create a positive trend?
So the root cause, is that a pun? Is that supposed to be funny? So who knows why the seagrasses have declined in the banana? Probably because it's full of muck. I mean, I don't know how you grow as a grass through black ooze on the bottom. And then has there been any efforts in the banana to recover? I think that the city of Satellite Beach is about to plant seagrass on the west side of Sampson's Island, which isn't exactly the banana, it's on the opposite side of it, but they're about to do a multifaceted restoration project with clams and oysters and seagrasses. So we'll see how that goes.
Again, going back to the Banana River, what could cause the Banana River to be green yesterday and red today?
Oh, is it red today? That's kind of fun. So do you want me to just guess? So there's a really cool red zooplankton. I forget its name. That if there's a lot of it, it's going to have a red look. It was up in Cocoa Beach a couple years ago during the 2016 brown tide. That zooplankton eats phytoplankton. Zoo is animal and phyto is plant. So it could be that you had a phytoplankton algae bloom and now you've got a zooplankton that's come in to eat it. But that's just a guess. I mean, I think it's a scientifically possible guess. It's not just.
I think that was a good guess. Yeah.
Making up stuff, I guess. But yeah, pretty good. So yeah, I always joke about we get all different colors of algae blooms here. You know, down there they just have that horrible toxic blue-green, but we get red, yellow, brown, green, pea soup, mocha latte.
All right.
It's not a good thing.
We do have one last question on pipes and inlets. So instead of adding another inlet, how about large pipes that connect the lagoon with the outlet of the pipe being located acceptably offshore? So not having the water go right out.
So a pump, so a pipe bringing water offshore into the lagoon.
I think it's the other way around.
Oh, a pump bringing water offshore out of the lagoon.
Yes, out of the lagoon into the offshore.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah, sounds like an infrastructure project. I don't, so I would never encourage taking water out of the lagoon and putting it anywhere, especially if it's in the banana. That's all muck, it's all contaminated, and I don't know where we would want it. How far off would you have to get it, like on the other side of the Gulf Stream? Because it's just gonna come back, right? So if you pump it too close, it's gonna end up back on our beach. It might just be further up or down, you know, depending on the wind direction, but. Although I heard the Gulf Stream was a mile closer here than it was down at St. Lucie Inlet on that fishing show I was on. I thought that was interesting. He's like, that's really unusual. How far in the Gulf Stream came here. So if you're a fisherman, it's time to go out, according to the fishing guys.
All right, we only have a couple of last questions.
Okay.
All right. All right, so we'll just do, they kind of relate to each other. Are pharmaceuticals and other household chemicals more likely to leach from septic tanks into the lagoon or be discharged from a sewer plant, especially during a storm event?
Ah, that's one's after my heart. So she was asking about things we typically find in the waste stream. So there's a lot of you know, what they talk about emerging contaminants. They're just all clumped in, like we haven't figured those out yet, right? Like PFAS is the latest emerging contaminant that they're finally starting to figure out. There's a ton of those, including microplastics. I mean, they all come in through the waste stream. Septic tanks typically do a pretty good job of dealing with stuff. What they leach out is nitrogen and phosphorus, and that's what they're designed to do. Almost everything stays in your tank, and then when your tank fills up, you get it pumped out and it goes to some wastewater treatment plant. When you get big slugs of raw sewage, which comes out of lines or lift station failures or wastewater treatment plants that are overflowing and they just send 100 million gallons of raw sewage, it's not treated at all. It's not treated at all. That's everything. That's your microplastics, that's your endocrine disruptors, your antibiotics, your raw sewage, your, you know, any kind of contaminant that we humans put down the drain of our sink or our toilet or our dishwasher or anything, it's in there. So there are a range, there's a host of emerging contaminants, as they call them. I call it toxic waste, but that we have not even begun to figure out yet. So there's, you know, there's a whole bunch of contaminants of concern that need to be addressed. And when I say we haven't figured them out, I'm not even talking about like how is it impacting the lagoon. I'm talking about like they haven't even established health standards yet. Like I think they're still working on the health standards for PFAS, right? So they still haven't, you know, they know it'll cause cancer, but they don't know what the regulatory standard is going to be yet. Enough said on that one. So I actually came from the hazardous and toxic waste cleanup world before I was a groundwater, you know, hazardous waste cleanup person for 10 years before I decided to stop immersing myself in toxins. So when I moved to stormwater, you know, above ground water realm of contaminants, and I said, what is your big, you know, contaminant of concern? They said nitrogen. I was like, nitrogen. Oh, that's funny because it's like nitrate, right, is toxic, and ammonia, of course, will kill you. But basically, you know, nitrogen in solution is not something that like is going to kill you instantly. But what I think is stunning, because I did for 10 years deal with the things that will kill you instantly, is they're not looking for those things in surface water. I'm like, you don't look for the things that will kill you instantly in surface water. You look for them in groundwater because people drink that, right? But surface water, although we drink surface water in Melbourne, hoot, hoot, they don't look for it. Are there any other questions?
There's a few more. I don't know if you want to keep going.
Well, the audience is kind of stuck here. Can you guys? I'll stay and talk and listen, answer questions as long as there are people asking and interested.
So if y'all would like to stay, you're more than welcome to. If Lisa's fine to continue to ask questions, that's totally fine. My mic is not on, so if you guys would like to continue to stay here, it's totally fine.
Very good. This is your chance to leave. They're like, we can walk out anytime we want. All right, bring on the questions.
Totally fine.
Going on with more questions.
Okay. All right.
So that actually leads really good into our next question. Is it better to stay on septic or should we switch to sewer?
Okay. The question is, I don't know if it's a homeowner deciding whether or not they want to be on sewer or septic, or just in general, what's better, septic or sewer? And the answer is, it depends. So there is an overlay, Brevard County, and I'm sure, I think Martin County has also, and other counties may have done this as well. I'm just more familiar with Brevard, where they've done an overlay of the priority areas where they suspect septic tanks are the most problematic, meaning that they're underwater, like they're below groundwater, that they're very close to a receiving water body, whether it's a canal or a tributary or the lagoon itself. And if your septic tank is in the area of primary concern, then it's best for you to be on sewer. Caveat, if the sewer system you're about to be hooked up to is partially treating the wastewater and sending it back out to irrigation lines, through reclaimed irrigation lines, then it doesn't make any difference, because the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus coming out of reclaimed lines is the same as the amount coming out of septic tanks. So there you have it. So if and there are wastewater treatment facilities, so they're treating, millions and millions of gallons of wastewater, and then the discharge water that's treated typically has concentrations of nitrogen in it that range. If it's secondary or tertiary treatment, they tend to be about 2 milligrams per liter. There are certain treatment plants, very, very local here, hint, hint, that are putting out 28 milligrams per liter of nitrogen. So there's a huge difference, 2 or 28, orders of magnitude. So, if your septic tank right now is putting out, a certain amount of nitrogen and phosphorus, and they hook you up to the plant that's then turning around and spraying 28 milligrams of nitrogen all over the community through irrigation water, that doesn't really make any sense. I wouldn't do it. You're polluting just as much being hooked up to the wastewater treatment facility, and there's a darn good chance that those wastewater lines are also leaking. So if you're in the overlay area where you're a primary septic tank problem area, you should hook up, but you should ask the question about, where are these lines taking my effluent and how is it going to be treated? I know everything's complicated.
Well, it's very good.
No easy answers.
Questions. Yeah, there's no easy answers. So our next question is, are the causeways across the Banana River an issue worth trying to improve? Yeah,
the causeways the causeways are an issue. And I know that the Brevard, and I hate to keep saying, Brevard County and the National Estuary Program have been working to try to increase the height of the 528 causeway. So the causeways are cutting off flow, and they are an issue. It's hard to say how much of an issue they are. They definitely cause the accumulation of muck in the eddies. They cut off flow. They reduce dissolved oxygen. They increase retention times. They probably have some disconnection of species and so on. But yeah, there's no doubt. So just the cost of heightening those causeways, right, it's very, very expensive. You have to deal with FDOT. They have a capital improvement plan. And it's just when they're getting ready to upgrade one of their causeways is when you can get into a conversation with them about, well, why don't you do it this way instead? So they're working on improvements of the 528. And we're hoping that they're going to raise it instead of having those causeways.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. All right, so do solar-powered monitoring stations in the tributaries to monitor nitrogen and phosphorus exist?
Do solar-powered ones? I'm not sure how they're powered. There are tributary real-time monitoring stations. There are 3 different entities that deploy them. You'd have to go to their websites to figure out where they all are. I know the Orca, Ocean Resource Conservation Association folks, they're located in Fort Pierce, but they've got some real-time monitoring up here in Brevard, and I think they're focusing on the tributaries. I'm not sure where they are located, but you can go to their website, Orca, just Google them. I'm not sure what their website address is, and they'll have a map of where they're located, and I'm pretty sure you can get the real-time data out there also. I'm guessing they're solar powered. I don't know how else they would have a power source. So it must be. So yeah, Orca has them, and then Harbor Branch Oceanographic has the IRLO, the Indian River Lagoon Observatory Network, and they've got some, and I think they're about to put one really close to Turkey Creek. I was advocating for it to be right outside of Turkey Creek, but they were also trying to position 4 new IRLO sensors where they could capture some variation in water quality associated with tributaries. And then lastly, St. John's River Water Management District, I think they call theirs Lobos, and then everybody's got a cute name for theirs. They're real-time monitoring stations. They've got 4 of them in Brevard County in the Indian River Lagoon, and I think they're all out in the proper lagoon. But I think the tributary ones would be Orca, and theirs are called Kilroy's, I think.
All right, cutting off on your questions.
Okay, am I done? All right, well, thank you all. We appreciate your awesome questions and your participation today and everything you do for the Indian River Lagoon. Are you coming up here? I'm going to turn it over to our marketing director, Steve Sharkey, and I wish you all a very wonderful holiday season and Happy New Year, and let's hope for the best in 2021 and be done with this year. And thank you all for being here. It makes a huge difference.
Okay, thank you again, Dr. Lisa Soto. Thank you to all the viewers out there in digital Zoom land. I hope the video and audio was working out okay for everyone. This is our report card. We want to thank the Save the Manatee Club again for their donation to help us package this information in this format. We're putting one together right now so we can get it to Tallahassee as soon as possible. And that's what this is designed for, is we work really hard here to produce this, and we need you to take it and run with it. So we can only do so much, and we spend a lot of time and effort to produce this, and we need you to act on it. So with this data, and we're going to try and get this information up on the website as soon as possible. We're hoping for tonight, but if not, in the coming days. And we will notify everyone through email and whatever contact information. And we need partners. We need partners. We need communication partners. So if you value this information and you see how it can be utilized as a tool to help us get the legislation, to help us get the leadership that is needed to improve the water quality of the Indian River Lagoon, then please reach out to us. We need to get this report card embedded on as many websites as possible. We need to get it into everyone's email network, get it onto everyone's Facebook, social media. We have another presentation tonight at 6:30. So please share this Vital Lagoon Health Update webinar with your networks, with your emails, with your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers. We need to get this information to all of our leaders. There's a couple million people along the coastal lagoon, and we only had about a couple hundred people tune in. And to have an impact, we need to distribute this far and wide, and we're going to need your help. So please reach out, email, contact, go to the website, savetheirl.org. And Dr. Lisa Soto is very accessible. We will work with you, whatever we have to do, but we need that communications coalition. And again, thank you to the Save the Manatee Club. If you are in a Rotary Club, in a garden club, in whatever club, we need your participation in whatever facet you can. So if that means we need $100,000 to raise to really produce this properly. We need to add the fisheries data. We need to add more tributaries. We need to go up all the tributaries to turn off those pollution sources. And we are not going to be able to do that without your help. So save the IRL, savetheirl.org. Tell your friends, thank you for coming out. And however you can help, we need you to. So if you want to sit through this again, we'll see you at 6:30. Otherwise, good night and enjoy your day.